because everyone's sort of strolling in. We had well over 20 people sign up, but it is Friday. And, you know, even with reminders, sometimes it takes a little while to get everyone in. There's Elaine who's joining us. So tell Jose, we have a lot of friends that join us every time we do an event, and we always pick up some new friends as well. Can you tell him that, Maru?
Sorry, but could you repeat?
Yes, that the people who are joining us, whenever we do a tasting, we have,
Friends from
I would say, you know, 2/3 to 3/4 of the people are established friends, but we always pick up new friends as well. So that's why I'm saying hello to everyone. Hi, Elaine.
Básicamente que las 3/4 de la gente que está hoy con nosotros es gente que conoce ya, o son gente, ¿cómo diríamos? Ahora solo me sale en inglés. Como que la conocen de otras veces, de gente con la que ya han estado en otras ocasiones. Y otra parte es gente nueva que se junta a las catas como hoy.
I have some words, but you speak too fast.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi.
Madeline.
Good to see you. All right, well, you know what? It's 4:05.
I was going to say I was a new friend.
You are, you can be any kind of friend you want, Norm, you know, you are a friend no matter what, and we can use whatever adjective you like. I'm happy to see you, always happy to see you. So I think what we should do, everyone, is go ahead and start, and then we can, I will keep an eye on the waiting room as people continue to join us. But I've been very excited about this tasting, and I shouldn't forget to mention that I'm Madeline Truffaut. I'm the happy and proud sommelier for Plum Market. And this is, we're moving towards the end of the last quarter of the year. So this is our, we have 2 more tastings after this. So this is a very special tasting indeed. And it's also right before Thanksgiving. I'm sure, Maru, you know about Thanksgiving in the United States, and Rioja is perfect for Thanksgiving. So the people who are joining us today are brilliant and proactive. And I'm going to introduce 3 people actually momentarily, but before I do that, I wanted to tell you my personal association with this producer and with this category. I've been lucky enough to have visited this region, Rioja, about, I don't know, 10 years ago, though unfortunately, I didn't make it to Faustino. So I'm gonna have to go back to visit. And about 3 years ago, there was a beverage conference in Chicago where I was lucky enough to attend a tasting of, I believe it was 10 to 12 vintages of Faustino Gran Reserva. And it, you know, we were a room full of sommeliers. There were probably at least 100 of us there. So it was quite a feat to pull off. And what struck me is how consistently excellent every wine was, in great shape, you know, reflecting the different vintages. And that inspired me very much in terms of the category and this producer. And also recently, over the last year, I've been doing private events using Master of the World kits with their little 6-bottle kits. And one of the wines has been the 09 Faustino Rioja Gran Reserva, which just transitioned to the 2010. And the wine always shows perfectly. So Maru, in just a minute, maybe you'll tell Jose the short version of what I said. So yes. That said, I think the other reason I'm excited about this is all of us who love wine, most of us really, you know, we look forward to, we buy our wine young, especially our red wine. And we want our wine, we like it young, but we want to taste it mature. And we feel that we have to wait 2, 3, 10 years for it to mature. We don't have to wait with this category of wine or this specific producer, because you can find, you know, 2010 Gran Reserva is the current vintage of Faustino 1. and it is utterly accessible in terms of its price point. They make lots and lots of wines, and you know, both Maru and Jose will talk to that, but I think that that's why that's another exciting aspect about Rioja Reserva and Gran Reserva. We have 3 guests. We have Jose, will you wave, say hi?
Yeah.
And Jose is, you know, I called him the winemaker, but if you read his bio, it's significantly more impressive than just that one word. He has a PhD in chemical sciences. He spent 10 years at the Basque Country University doing research, and for 21 years now, he has been the research and development director of Grupo Faustino that includes, I believe, 6 wineries. And a specialty of his is adapting viticulture to climate change, which is exciting. And we were chatting about it before you all got on. So if you have questions about that, and throughout this, please keep them coming in the chat room. We have someone, Carrie, are you there? Can you wave? Carrie Folk, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Wonderful, is you know, a big reason why this came together. She's the director of sales for the Midwest for Faustino's import company, Pacific Highway, and we've worked closely as well with you know, you'll see in the corner of your screen Eugenia, or in Greek, you know, Evgenia San Pedro, and we call her Maru, who also has an impressive background. She's the export director for Faustino. And her English is spectacular. She spent some time in Oxford, so you know, your accent is slightly English tinged, but exports are a huge part of what you know, is of Faustino's history and actually sold, because you are, you know, it accounts for what, 30% of your production or more. It's more than that. And as a result, this brand is so iconic because it is the most recognized brand and accessible brand of Rioja in the world, not just in the United States. So that said, most of the story is going to be told by Maru and Jose, with me going through some slides, but we give you a warm Michigan welcome. And Maru, will you kindly tell Jose just a little bit of what I said, especially about, you know, how much it impressed me when I tasted that many vintages of Gran Reserva a few years ago.
Yeah. José Mari, básicamente lo que está comentando Madeleine es que ella, bueno, ya te comenté en su momento que está muy enamorada del Faustino primero, porque sobre todo llegó a conectar con él en uno de los eventos que se hizo en Chicago hace 3 años, que fue Paco, el director del CEO, y también Ángel, que se hizo una cata vertical con añadas desde el 64, pasando por el 87, el 92, 96, 2001, y de hecho ella utiliza el Faustino primero como un referente de marca de Rioja, Gran Reserva, sin lugar a dudas. Yeah, so
that's what
yeah, sorry.
No, I'm sending a message to everyone in the chat room that to keep the comments and questions coming. Carrie's going to keep her eye on it, but speak up anytime you want to, especially if you speak Spanish, because I think it would be fun for Jose to hear someone ask a question in Spanish. So that said, we're going to cover a little bit of ground. We're going to talk about the family background and the winery background. Jose is going to talk about the vineyards, the grape sources, and winemaking techniques. And we are going to taste the 3 wines. So I think what I'll do now is pull up our slides, Maru, and then you can take it away and we can start talking about, let me start the PowerPoint. Hold on a sec. I haven't figured out how to do this yet. Slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. Yeah. I have to tell everyone I did my first in-person event last night, not at Plum. It was at Shinola Hotel in downtown Detroit, and I felt like, you know, it was my prom. It was my my first dance. It had been so long. So Maru, will you tell us a little bit about the background of Faustino and the family history? And this label is just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for attending today's event. I am so honored to be with all of you today. I feel already so comfortable here and cozy. I'm home talking with all of you in your homes as well, in Michigan, from Spain. As Madeline says, well, thank you very much for the introduction. It was really great. I'm the export manager. I represent in the US one of the biggest wineries in Spain, in the top 10 so far, not only in the production way, also as a brand, because Faustino is one of the most recognizable brands. We are a family business. We'll talk about that a bit later. And we are still run by the family. We're in the 4th generation. We have 6 wineries, that's true. They are based in different appellations of Spain, in 5 of them, in the most important ones. And Faustino is the biggest. It's the mother of all of them. It's based in Ollón. That's the name of the village that we
And I'm
are.
going to show them right now. I was so proud of myself that I got the village right?
Yeah.
So here we go. Hold on just a moment. Everybody who's been watching ours knows that I'm obsessed with Google Earth, but where are we? North Central Spain, right, Maru?
Yes, up north. We are 3.5 hours drive from Madrid, which is the capital, the main city, and 4 hours away from Bordeaux.
And you can see we're very close to Basque. Well, we're in Basque country, actually, right here, correct? In Ollón. I'm gonna show that one more time, just because I think it's such a cool thing to show us where we are.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of the influence of the Atlantic, though you have the Cantabria Mountains that act as a barrier, correct? And
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, there's a Basque country with all those beautiful, expensive restaurants. Right,
and amazing food and beautiful cities, and
There's Logroño that everyone knows is, you know, the center of Rioja, but the winery is based in Ollón, is that correct?
It is in Ollón, but to be honest, I live in Logroño. And
oh, you live in Logroño, okay.
Yeah, I am here, and it's literally 5 minutes drive.
Wonderful.
Rioja is divided with Basque country thanks the Ebro River, the 2nd largest river in Spain. So that's the only barrier we have with the Basque country. This is why Logroño, which is on the top of the region of Rioja, just need to drive 5 minutes. You are in the Basque country and in Faustino.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that close.
It is so
and
close.
you are a native of the area, correct?
I'm as local as Tempranillo, so I'm from here. I was born here, obviously, all my family, and I have been living here pretty much not all my life, but mostly.
Everyone, by the way, you can always select on your screen speaker view, so you can you know, look at Maru and Jose while they're talking, or you can watch all of us, you know, sip and munch. So this is what, 4th generation family owned, correct?
Exactly, it is a 4th generation. I have to say, just to specify a little bit more about that, the 2 first generations, they didn't build a winery as you know it now, as Faustino, you know it. They were dedicating themselves to the vineyard. They were so focused in the vineyards, they were producing wines, and at the very beginning, they were selling the wines to other producers. It was not until the 3rd generation, when he came back from Bordeaux, because he studied in Bordeaux, that he decided that the wine industry could become in a business for him. Instead of selling their incredible wines to other wineries, why not create a brand in honor of his father? The 2nd generation was called Faustino. Actually, is the man in the middle, in front of you. with
So
the
this
fancy
gentleman, his name is Eleftherio, right? Which, by the way,
Eleuterio.
it means freedom in Greek, which is just great.
Ah,
Eleftheria is freedom. So is he the official founder?
yes, he is. In 1861, he founded a company, or he started in the wine industry. Okay, buying hectares to produce wine, viticulture, not with a brand. Faustino, it didn't exist yet.
Right.
Okay, it was his son called Faustino, the one in the middle with the
Mhm.
fancy lady. But he continued his legacy, producing wines, looking after the vineyards, buying more hectares in different parts of Rioja, and he sent his son to Bordeaux to study. And this is why when Julio, the third generation, came back to Rioja, with obviously studies and knowledge about the wine industry, and created the brand Faustino.
Well, I have to interrupt for two reasons. One, just to remind us all, the relationship between Bordeaux and Rioja goes over centuries. Because when, for instance, phylloxera and actually diseases prior to that in Bordeaux hit there, a lot of winemakers, came down to Rioja. So there was, there was a great presence of and influence of French winemaking, which is one of the reasons why they have the barricas, right? The 225-liter barrels.
So many things that we can talk about this. Before being an expert manager, I used to do a visit at the winery and other wineries. I was working in the tourist department. I learned so much about the Rioja thing. We even have a winery in Rioja with an Eiffel cellar. You know the Eiffel Tower?
Eiffel Tower, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, the Eiffel architect built a cellar in one of the wineries because we were so connected with France. And this is because of the phylloxera. This is why Eleuterio, he was from the Basque country, realized there was a huge business in the middle of the 19th century and came to Rioja to produce wine.
I have to say, this picture I adore because look at her. She's in white, dressed to the teeth, right? This must be in the 1960s, wearing heels. And she's standing 1 foot away from a vat where grapes are being dumped.
That picture is everywhere at the winery. I love it.
So I didn't know if, I'm just going to show this really quickly, but you're going to review it. I mean, huge, the largest vineyard owners in Rioja, which, with over 1,500 acres. And the number of barrels is staggering to me. You say 47,000 here, but I watched a little YouTube video, which I'm going to send the link to all of you as a recap. I think you're up to, well over that, and 10 million bottles in the aging facility. But, lest we forget that new generations are coming along, and throughout Europe, there are a lot of daughters that are taking over ownership and running wineries. Tell us about these two women, Maru.
Well, both of them are incredible, so close. They also are part of one of the most, let's say, important families in Spain, in the 200. They are so relevant, so really well connected. But what it impresses me the most is that they still live in the region. They go to the winery every single day. Actually, Jose Mari and I this morning were with Lourdes at the winery, chatting, because she is adorable. She loves to talk about the wines. She tells you a lot of stories about when she was younger and her father used to make her to go to the vineyards. Both of them are sisters. You can tell it by the surnames. They are really, really close to each other. One is a lawyer, the other one is an economics. And they are very close to what the family has been doing for many years. Now, obviously, they have a lot of profession because her father used to be very into the wine industry. They did travel a lot, and with all the knowledge, they run the company, both of them. And they are just for the few that still are in the wine industry in Rioja with big wineries. Just a few. There is no many female, as you know, in the wine industry yet running a winery. in
But
Rioja.
it's changing, you know, and actually, I had requested that one of the sisters or both of them do this tasting with us, and they were not available, or maybe they're too shy to do this type of thing. But we're now going to hear from Jose, who immediately said yes, which I thought was just terrific. And together we're going to taste the first wine, the 2015 Tempranillo, which is on the label, it says Rioja Reserva, but my bad, it also says Tempranillo right on the label. So this is 100% Tempranillo, correct?
José Mari, básicamente vamos a catar el Faustino V, 100% tempranillo. Yo sé que la trazabilidad del vino busca hacer un vino dependiendo de cada añada, a veces se puede utilizar algo de mazuelo, pero explícanos si quieres un poquito sobre esta cosecha, este vino.
Vale, bueno, pues lo primero, que estoy encantado de poder estar con todos vosotros hoy aquí.
He's really pleased to be with all of you today.
Es una suerte porque además normalmente catamos en la cercanía y hoy es catar a miles de kilómetros, y esto, bueno, pues gracias a la tecnología es posible y es una suerte, la verdad. Bueno. El tempranillo para nosotros en La Rioja es el alma de las variedades de Rioja, es lo que identifica a nuestros viñedos y nuestros vinos.
Saying that Tempranillo is the soul of Rioja. I mean, it's everywhere. Everyone talks about Tempranillo in Rioja. It's what it identifies our vineyard.
Y no solamente en La Rioja, sino que también a nivel de España es una variedad que está muy introducida.
In the whole of Spain, it's a really popular variety.
And it has many synonyms, so it's called different names depending on where it's grown. Would you do me a favor, ask him, and I'm going to interrupt him, tell us a little bit about the grape itself. Is it thick-skinned? Is it large? Is it small?
Me dice Madeleine que es una variedad encima que tiene distintos nombres en distintas partes de España, como bien sabes, cariñena, sangre de toro, etcétera. Pero quiere que le expliques un poquito, por favor, características del tempranillo, si es la piel muy fina, muy gorda, el color, la acidez.
Correcto. El tempranillo, bueno, desde el punto de vista fisiológico, es un racimo generalmente de tamaño medio a grande con hombros.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot. The bunch? Sorry.
Yes, the cluster, the bunch.
Yes. The cluster, yes, sorry. Has dicho, José Mari, que era pequeño, ¿verdad?
No, es un racimo de tamaño mediano grande, ¿vale?
It's medium to large size, the cluster, and it has shoulders. If you look at the cluster, it will be something like this. So the shoulders, it's something that characterizes the variety, this type of variety. Go ahead.
Es una variedad de ciclo corto. Por eso se llama tempranillo, porque madura más pronto que el resto de las variedades.
Yeah, I mean, tempranillo in English, it will translate as sooner because it ripes sooner than the rest of the varieties. This is why we call it tempranillo, because it's probably one of the first red varieties to be harvested due to the, how do you say, of the ripen of the varieties.
Yeah, so because it ripens earlier than the other varieties like Graciano and Mazuelo, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yes. And
Continúa, José Mari.
You know, why did he make this one 100% Tempranillo? And can he? I'm very impressed by it because even with 18 months in oak, it still looks very young. The color is very dark and it tastes very fresh. Will you tell him that?
Yeah, of course. Nos pregunta Madeleine, ¿por qué un 100% tempranillo que a pesar del tiempo que tiene en barrica, los 18 meses, más el tiempo en botella, tiene un color muy joven, muy fresco?
El quid de la cuestión está en la acidez que tiene el vino.
The acidity of the wine.
Acidity, And it has good... Go ahead.
Estamos en una zona, Rioja es una zona bastante amplia y la zona en la que nosotros estamos es una zona de las más altas, entre 450 y 650 metros de altitud.
The place where the wine or the grapes of this wine are placed, it's a bit higher. This is where it provides some more acidity. We're talking about 450 meters up to 700 meters.
So we are actually between 1,400 and 2,000 feet above sea level. So that's significant, you know, and everyone, you're at that altitude and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it preserves acidity in the red wine. So I love that. So that's natural acidity thanks to the altitude, even though we're in a warm growing region, right?
Lo que comenta Madeleine es que precisamente, bueno, que encuentres esa acidez en el vino, no importando la altitud, que incluso, bueno, yo creo, si no me equivoco, José Mari, se busca más altitud para buscar también más acidez, sobre todo con el cambio climático.
Efectivamente, efectivamente. Con el tema del cambio climático, que igual lo comentamos un poquito más tarde, lo que nos obliga es a ir subiendo más hacia el norte y más en altitud. Tener en cuenta que estamos muy cerca del Atlántico, del mar Atlántico, y que ahí hay una influencia de vientos fríos que ayudan a que las uvas se mantengan frescas y por lo tanto mantengan muy bien la acidez.
Okay, I'm going. So basically, what he's saying is that due to the climate change, we will talk briefly later on about that. We are looking, or the winemakers are looking for vineyards up north and higher for the acidity, and also to look for the fresh, the cold temperatures for the maturation. Also, we are very close to the Atlantic. That's why we get some influence from there. And that's why that climate helps our raw material to keep fresh and to ripen properly.
Sí, y para nosotros es fundamental la acidez, porque si no hay acidez, no hay envejecimiento posible del vino.
Without acidity, no longevity. I think both things should be connected to each other.
And that's true everywhere. I mean, if a red wine is acid deficient, you know, it simply doesn't have the capacity to age. But to everyone who's listening to this to me is ideal for Thanksgiving because it's smooth, it's not too tannic, it's got a ton of fruit. And I think the oak is very well integrated. And this is a little unusual because it's 100% Tempranillo, it's not a blend, and it's all American oak as opposed to a combination of American and French. Is there any way he would want to describe this wine before we continue?
¿Algo que quieras decir de este vino antes de que pasemos a la siguiente diapositiva, José Mari? ¿Algo remarcable?
Pues básicamente que este vino es un poco la entrada a los vinos con largas crianzas que tenemos en el grupo.
Yes, he's saying that this wine, it opens the door to the rest of the wines of the portfolio with long agings. Let's say this is the first one with pretty significant aging. Then we will continue with Faustino 1, Faustino Ico, like different types. This one is the first one to talk about premium wines at the company.
Y que es también un vino que se ve muy bien los aspectos, creo que más importantes que podemos encontrar en los vinos, como son la frutalidad y la barrica. Es un vino bastante directo en ese sentido.
It's a very direct wine, thanks to the balance with fruit and barrel. The two things are very well present in the wine, and you can tell it. And quality price for that, for like a basis premium wine in the company, is just amazing.
No, it is absolutely. I mean, if anyone, those of you who bought it know, we're talking a wine that has several years bottle and barrel age for under $20, which is, you know, shocking. Try to find that anywhere else. And I think it's drinking wonderfully well. The oak is not dominant at all on this wine. It's very well integrated, and it's more to me about fresh and dried red berries and a little bit of spice. So I'm going to pivot for a moment to the vineyards, and it's specifically Rioja Alavesa, because you have significant holdings there, and that is the subdistrict of Rioja that is, you know, the closest to the Atlantic, and actually in terms of, I guess you would say, political placement is in Basque Country. So does Jose want to tell us a little bit about Alavesa and what, you know, what that contributes to the wines, or whatever he wants to talk about in terms of the grape varieties grown there?
José Mari, básicamente si nos cuentas un poquito sobre la zona de Rioja Alavesa y las variedades que se dan allí para que ellos lo conozcan un poquito más.
Vale. En cuanto a variedades, las que más trabajamos, por un lado es el tempranillo, que es la mayoritaria, que estaríamos hablando de en torno al 80-85%.
Tempranillo, 80-85% is the majority of the wine varieties red in the company.
Mazuelo con un 10% aproximadamente y el Graciano en torno al 5%, más o menos.
Mazuelo, 10% of our total production of red wine, and Graciano, 5%, up to, 5% pretty much.
Sí, y dentro de estas variedades, el tempranillo es una variedad, como decía, de ciclo corto. El Graciano y el Mazuelo son variedades de ciclo más largo y necesitan bastante más tiempo para madurar. Son unas muy buenas candidatas a determinadas zonas de Rioja para poder madurar en condiciones.
So, Graciano and Mazuelo ripe later than Tempranillo. They are perfectly for some areas of Rioja. In those varieties, we are looking for acidity. Graciano has an incredible structure in color, acidity.
And color, yes. And a little bit more tannin, correct? I'm interrupting also because when I visited and I saw some Riojas that were dominantly Graciano, and I was shocked at the structure, the tannin and the color. Everyone, by the way, Mazuelo is Carignan, right, Maru?
Cariñena,
right.
Cariñena is Mazuelo.
It's Mazuelo, yeah, and it's grown in what, southern France, all over the place, and also
very close to us in Aragon, very close to Rioja.
Very close, yes. And also in Chile, it actually, you have Old Vine Carignan in Chile, yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, go ahead.
No. Regarding Graciano, José Mari, les voy a contar lo que hemos hablado esta mañana. He was telling me they are so impressed with the color of Graciano this year. Like, it was, I think 15 years ago, we didn't get the colors of the Graciano we are getting this year. Los colores del Graciano, ¿verdad? Que estáis consiguiendo este año, que desde 2005 no se veían.
Para que os hagáis una idea, el vino que acabamos de tomar tendrá aproximadamente 8 puntos de color, ¿sí?
The wine we just drank, the Faustino 5, it has 8 points of color. That's the technique way to say the color for the winemaker. ¿Sí?
Este año hemos conseguido Gracianos que tienen por encima de 30 puntos de color.
This year, the Graciano we got for the same wine, 30 points. So from 8
much more color. So you know this.
30.
Impresionante.
Impressive.
When you see the color of Rioja, this is good for us to know, because quite often we think of it as being, you know, maybe a wine that always shows its age and always looks translucent, but that's not the case at all. You know, if it has significant amount of Graciano, it can be quite dark indeed. And I'm going to tell us right now, ask us right now, we got a great question from Elaine. What kind of food specifically with this Rioja or Rioja in general for Thanksgiving? And I was looking at your notes, Maru, and with the 96, they were describing chorizo and rabbit and mushrooms and Gruyere cheese. But I'm going to say for Thanksgiving, just a nice classic stuffing, AKA dressing, with or without sausage would be terrific, don't you think?
Yeah, Madeleine está hablando sobre con qué recomendaríamos beber este vino, ¿no? Y en las notas de cata hablamos de champiñones, conejo, pues ese tipo de lo que ella habla de que en el Día de Acción de Gracias, que ya sabes que es dentro de nada en Estados Unidos, puede ir, o sea, si hay algo que tú recomiendes en general, pero bueno, con el pavo.
Es una carne suave que no es excesivamente grasa. Es un vino que no es demasiado estructurado, y entonces el Faustino V Reserva es un vino que yo creo que puede encajar perfectamente.
It's not heavenly structure, the Faustino 5. This is why with the turkey, which is not an excessive strong meat, for example, it can be paired perfectly, for example.
I like this slide because it shows that most of that Alavesa, correct me if I'm wrong, most of
Yeah.
the grapes are sourced from Alavesa for the wines that we're drinking tonight, correct?
Yes, exactly. I just wanted to give you an overview of where we produce our wines, because we produce in Rioja, obviously. There is 3 different areas in Rioja: Rioja Alta, Rioja Oriental, and Rioja Alavesa. We produce 2 of our everyday wines, the Tempranillo wine, the Crianza, in Rioja Oriental, both of them.
And that's also called Rioja Baja, is that correct?
It used to be Baja.
Used to be, now it's
2 years
Oriental.
ago has changed into Oriental.
Okay.
And we produce the other ones in Alavesa. So here is categories of Rioja. In Rioja, you turn around the bottle, you see this label over there. Well, this
See,
is,
I didn't know this. This is great. If you look right down here, right, let me go back up. So this, the blue, right, is referring to Gran Reserva, right?
this is something
Yeah.
the control border of Rioja sends to each winery after harvest. That means that there is someone from the control border of Rioja checking everything that goes into the winery to make sure it's Rioja grapes. And then they control the kilos. After the harvest, is like, okay, you have brought in 1,000 kilos, it belongs to you, 1,000 labels. Depending on quality, they give you Reserva, Gran Reserva, Crianza, Joven. So this is like the money. It has a number. If you put the number into the DOC Rioja, it tells you which wine you are drinking. And this is the same for every single winery in Rioja. This is the only thing we do not design at the company. It's
So
from
is there, Crianza has wood aging, but does Vino Joven have any wood aging?
How do you explain joven? La etiqueta del joven, ¿a qué se refiere, José Mari? Porque es que aquí hay miga.
La etiqueta del joven es todo vino que no tiene ningún proceso de crianza, en principio, ¿vale? Pero también puede ser cualquier vino que no se indique que tiene crianza, puede ser con etiqueta de joven. Es una etiqueta, es la etiqueta genérica por excelencia, es decir, hay vinos de reserva que tampoco se quieren poner de reserva y se ponen como jóvenes, pero en principio, haría referencia a un vino que no lleva crianza.
At the very beginning, that green label is referred to a wine without aging, or maybe 2-3 months aging, not the minimum like the Crianza that is 12 months. But nowadays, there is so many new wineries, modern styles. They want to imitate Bordeaux style, Burgundy, I don't know, the Chilean, and they don't want to be classified as Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva. So the green one is the generic that at least says that this wine has the minimums to be called Rioja. So it's a bit generic.
Now, I'm putting up a little bit of a packed slide. It looks serious, but what I want everyone to do while Jose is talking a little bit about viticulture is to go ahead and taste the 2010, because that's what I'm doing. And then he'll discuss it specifically after he tells us a little bit about what he's doing these days with regards to with or without issues of climate change. So can he talk a little bit about his viticulture techniques?
Of course, José Mari, ¿nos puedes dar un poco unas pinceladas de cuáles son las nuevas técnicas en el viñedo con el cambio climático, etcétera?
Sí, pues efectivamente, para poder controlar o al menos tener una idea de qué es lo que nos puede suceder en el viñedo, estamos utilizando 2 técnicas para poder visualizar y tener información. Por un lado, el seguimiento a través de estaciones climáticas que nos predigan el clima, incluso hasta enfermedades, a partir de los datos que nos dan. Eso por un lado.
So basically, we are using new techniques to help us to predict new or illness that are found in the vineyard. So we are obviously now using the 21st century's methods to to pretty much prevent in advance any plagues or illness that you can be found, that it can be found in the vineyard.
Diseases, yes.
Diseases,
And what
yes,
what is this impressive looking vegetation index? Since we've got it up here, can he explain it
Yes.
to us lightly, just a little bit? Right.
Que nos digas en un par de frases un poco qué quiere decir esa imagen que tenemos ahí, que creo que es la cámara aérea, ¿no?
Era la segunda parte. La segunda parte es
Second thing, yeah.
poder disponer de información del viñedo, del estado vegetativo, es decir, de cómo se encuentra el viñedo desde el punto de vista de cantidad de agua que tiene la planta, de si la planta puede estar seca o incluso de pues, si puede tener algún tipo de enfermedad. Esto es lo que nos estaría diciendo esta imagen aérea, porque es una imagen aérea, ¿vale?
This is the image has been taken from the air. This is one of the techniques he uses every day to control and to be familiar and to know about the how do you say, about how the vineyards are in every moment. Let's, for example, think about water. How the land is with the water, with the if it's dry, if it's humid. So pretty much it gives you all the information thanks to how do you say, una máquina, bueno, ¿cómo le llamaríais vosotros?
Nada, esto es una imagen de dron o de satélite.
Yes, it's from a
drone
drone.
shot.
A drone tells, yes, a drone
Yes.
shot that tells you all of that of the vineyard, water, the situation of the moment. So it's very, 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 very helpful.
Nos permite también saber si en un momento dado en alguna zona pues hace falta regar o hace falta hacer algún tipo de aplicación.
They need to water any kind of particular area, so it tells them everything. So the Faustino Gran Reserva, one of our most icon or the most icon of the company so far.
How many bottles are made of this every year, approximately?
And that's quite a lot, 800,000 bottles.
But it's amazing because you have such consistency of quality. But I'll let him, what does he want to tell us about this wine that is so important to you internationally?
José Mari, una de las cosas que me ha dicho es que cuando producimos, le he dicho que 800.000 y esto viene un poco referido a la conversación nuestra de que producimos ese vino con una calidad excepcional. ¿Qué nos dirías?
Sí,
el
eso
vino
es.
Para ti, es el
Es-
Faustino I.
El Faustino I es un vino que habla de nuestra historia, eso para empezar, porque lo llevamos haciendo desde antes, aproximadamente desde 1960, y con estas características.
Un segundo, ¿eh? This wine talks about the history of the company, because it's the first one we created in the company, and we have been producing this wine excellent vintages. Continúa, por favor.
Es un vino que además tradicionalmente lo venimos elaborando con las mismas variedades, porque hasta ahora nos ha ido dando buenos resultados desde el punto de vista de envejecimiento.
So we have been producing this wine since the very beginning with the same varieties, because it's given us really great results in terms of aging. ¿Sí?
Es un vino que nos da muchos quebraderos de cabeza, porque verdaderamente necesitamos disponer cada año de una cantidad muy elevada de vino de muy alta calidad.
So it's a very complex wine for the winemaker every year, because to produce this wine, remember what I said a few minutes ago, we only do it the excellent vintages, but we need to have great quantity because we produce quite a few bottles of this one
Right.
with incredible quality, and that's not easy.
Es que hacer 3.000 botellas de un muy buen vino es muy fácil todos los años, pero hacer 800.000 botellas de un vino de esta calidad es muy difícil, porque hace falta mucho vino de calidad muy elevada.
Jose Mari is telling me something that my father has told me since I started in the wine industry. To produce a wine with only 3,000 bottles of production is easy, particularly nowadays, and that's what you expect, be great. To do this with a wine with such a big production, with that quality, with that price, with that balance, is a very difficult thing for the winemaker.
Now, this one, the 2010, can you give us an idea, because it's impressive, the quantity, how many barrels or bottles does the 2010 represent?
¿Cuánto hemos producido de la añada 2010? Ahora les cuento un poquito la noticia que nos dieron.
De la añada 2010, pues esos vinos, bueno, más o menos todos los años solemos andar en torno a las 800.000 botellas. Luego, dependiendo de la producción, podemos llegar a 900.000 un año, bajar a 700, 600, dependiendo de los años. Pero yo creo que ahí andaría en torno a las 800 o por ahí, ¿eh?
About 800,000 bottles. Like every year, kind of it changed
It
from
varies,
700,000 up to 900,000. Actually, the 2010 has been said by wine enthusiasts as the greatest vintage of the decade, not decade, of the century, and is the highest score we get in Rioja from wine enthusiasts.
I have to interrupt to say, you know, I love talking about this because sometimes we think small production is better and big is not. And it's just not the case, especially when you have people that specialize in doing something like this. Also, frankly, this is what, over 60,000 cases, you know, 12 packs. But if you go to Bordeaux and you talk about some of the first growths, they're not making tiny amounts of wine. You know, they can make 26 to 40,000 cases, some of the estates. So quantity just means that you know what you're doing. Can he describe the wine? How would he describe the character of this wine, and also why the decision to use both French and American oak?
Un poco que nos describas este vino y también un poco el porqué de utilizar roble americano y roble francés.
Vale. Bueno, lo primero, como ya hablábamos, es un vino que tiene 3 variedades. La variedad principal es el tempranillo. Es un vino de los que ya, o sea, primero es un vino muy estructurado. Es un vino con una elevada complejidad, aunque todavía podemos apreciar notas, no voy a decir frescas, pero sí frutales.
Un momentito que lo traduzco.
Vale.
It is a wine with a lot of complexity. It is a wine with a lot of structure. We still can appreciate some fruit aromas, aromas frutales, ¿verdad, José Mari?
Aroma fruta muy madura, ¿eh?
Fruta, like raspberries, for example,
Yes.
a very ripened red fruit, ¿ya? Continúa, por favor.
También encontramos notas especiadas. Y luego es un vino, bueno, y luego evidentemente las de evolución de la propia botella, las notas de cedro, alguna nota de hierba seca.
Thanks to bottle aging, cedar, so there is some other spices that comes up thanks to the aging.
¿Y por qué utilizar 2 maderas? El roble americano nos va a ayudar, sobre todo al principio, con roble americano nuevo, a sujetar esa cantidad de materia de color, de tanino, que nos trae, bueno, de tanino, de color, de estructura que nos trae el propio vino.
The American oak, sorry, help us to sustain, to maintain, sorry, the color of the wine itself. So it helps us with the color, yeah? Continúa.
Y en una
Which
segunda
one
fase,
does? Which one helps us with
The American.
the American
American
oak? Okay.
en una segunda fase, el roble francés nos va a permitir matizar el tanino que queda y aportar ya esas notas especiadas, esas notas de tofe que le aporta el roble francés. Más especiado, no tan dulce.
So the French oak is like that second phase, or first the American that push the color of wine. The French oak, let's say, that emphasize the tannin, the color, and also it helps with the spices like coffee, black pepper. That helps the wine to get all of those aromas. Okay.
Also, I'm gonna interrupt just to say, and you can tell him, the spices to me are wonderful because they're like exotic sweet spices like cardamom, allspice. But what I love about this one, even more than the 09, I'm curious if 10 is a better vintage, the fruit is so fresh on this still. And everyone, if you look at the color of the wine on a white angle, there's just a little bit of yellow, but this wine can handle much more bottle age. It's got a little bit more grip, a little bit more tannin. Will you ask him if he agrees with that?
Sí, básicamente lo que comenta Madeline es el color del vino. El tiempo que le damos también de botella creo que es fundamental, pero el vino tiene unos toques de color que además es que lo mantiene, no parece que tenga el vino 10 años, ¿verdad?
Efectivamente, pero eso sobre todo es gracias, por un lado, a la estructura que tiene el vino y sobre todo por la acidez, ¿eh? Aquí la
This is
acidez
because
juega un
of the
papel.
acidity, Madeline. Thanks to the
What-
structure, but mainly the acidity is what it gives you those colors in the wine reflection.
How
Yes,
many
well,
years on average, ask him, does the Gran Reserva stay in the bottle before it's released to the public? What's the average that you hold back these bottles before you sell
What-
them?
¿Cuánto tiempo tenemos el vino en botella antes de sacarlo al mercado? La media de todos los años.
Pues para vinos, a ver, este vino tiene en estos momentos, es una cosecha de hace 11 años. Son dos años en barrica aproximadamente, porque son 26 meses, pues estará por encima de los 6 años tranquilamente.
More than 6 years. Yeah.
And can you imagine that, everyone? Just so if you're, thinking, wondering about the whole large production thing, these people on an average are holding back this wine with no income for 6 years in the cellar after it's bottled, after 2 years in the barrel. So I know we're pushing time a little bit, so I'm going to nudge Jose to talk a little bit about how he makes this wine. We've got this is a wonderfully evocative shot, and then we've got one that's going to discuss the aging technique and the winemaking technique. So if you can encourage him to talk in that direction about what winemaking methods are they just classic? Does he do anything in particular, especially for the wines that are meant to have extended aging, like the Gran Reservas?
Básicamente que sí que tienes algo técnica especial ahí para hacer el Gran Reserva, ¿no? Que es un poco lo que esta imagen ya nos cuenta, ¿no? El envejecimiento yo creo que es la diferencia.
Sí, básicamente es el trabajo con esas variedades en esas zonas en las que estamos trabajando de Rioja Alavesa, y luego también en Bodegas Faustino se ha trabajado siempre con largas crianzas, y eso es una de las cosas, como pone en la diapositiva, que nos diferencia en general de nuestro entorno del resto de bodegas de La Rioja.
So it is crucial to use the 3 different varieties, also the aging in barrels, but particularly what makes us so different with the rest of the competitors, aging in bottle. Actually, 2010, as I just said, it's been awarded by Wine Enthusiasts as a remarkable vintage. But every single people has burned that ballot already because they used to sell the 2010 3 years or 4 years ago. Now is when we start to sell the 2010, because for us, it's a current vintage already. Some people maybe it's a mythical vintage, but for us, aging in bottle is fundamental.
Now he is, by law, it has to be, correct me if I'm wrong, aged in 225-liter barrels. Because when I was in Rioja, I saw experiments being done, but they were off to the side on different size barrels. Can he use different size barrels or different fermentation containers like cement eggs or larger inert oak? If you can talk to that a
Yeah,
little
of
bit.
course. José Mari, comenta a Madeline que cuando estuvo en La Rioja veía que las barricas 225, bueno, en verdad son las obligadas por la DEO, pero también se está experimentando con barricas más grandes. ¿Se puede hacer, hay un máximo, un mínimo para producir un vino en barricas grandes? ¿O?
A ver, se puede trabajar con barrica más grande, incluso también con barrica más pequeña, porque hay bodegas que lo están haciendo con barrica más pequeña. Pero sobre todo las pequeñas es para acelerar los procesos y las grandes normalmente es para ralentizar los procesos.
You can do it not only in bigger barrels. There's a lot of wineries now like doing new techniques in small barrels. But small barrels, it is to accelerate the process. And obviously, the bigger, the 500-liter ones that sometimes are used in white wine, it is to do the same process of barrel aging, but in a slower period of time.
But he can use different size barrels for aging.
Puedes
or
utilizar
no?
las barricas que te dé la gana en la elaboración de vino en tamaños de barricas.
En principio, las de 225 es con la que normalmente trabajamos, pero insisto, hay también gente que está trabajando con 110.
Pero se puede, ¿no? Eso es lo que pregunta Madeleine. ¿Puedes usar barricas más
Pues,
grandes?
francamente, Maru, no lo sé, porque es que como en general en La Rioja estamos trabajando con 225, yo diría que yo no me lo tendría que mirar en el Consejo Regulador.
No, he's not 100% sure.
Oh, good.
I
If he
have-
doesn't know, then we're happy.
No, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
he knows that you are allowed to use, but what he's telling me, he's not sure if you are limited in the amount of percent of barrels you have to use to be called Rioja. And that's the same thing I've heard from other winemakers. Maybe you can do it for like singular vineyards, but for like a regular wines or bigger productions, you will have to go deeper into the law, because that's something we don't do normally. We do experiments in small and bigger barrels, but not as a regular thing for a regular wine.
So good, there is some flexibility in a few gray areas. So I want anyone who wants to unmute and talk about this 2010, please do, because I think it's completely delightful. And I'm curious if anyone is drinking it who wants to comment on how it's showing, because I found the 09 had much more of an impression of oak and vinosity, oxidative character, but this 10 is remarkably fresh, and I think it will age in the bottle beautifully.
Pero, Maru,
Madeline,
simplemente por confirmarlo, 225 litros y no se permiten otras cosas, ¿vale?
325 liters are the compulsory barrel size you have to use. Maybe you could do,
225, right. Mhm.
this is why you see 2025 everywhere, but I think you can use like a tiny one for singular vineyards, and he's going to look at it.
No se limita al origen del roble. El roble puede ser francés, americano, húngaro,
And comes from
pero la
anywhere
barrica
in the world.
225 litros.
But the size, it's compulsory, it has to be 225, but the oak can be Hungarian, Russian,
It could be
American.
any kind of oak, yes. So Amy had a question or a comment. Amy, you want to speak up?
Yes, Madeline, I am with my longest friend, Marguerite, who is from Puerto Rico, who is going to ask everything in Spanish.
Excellent.
Also translate myself. Doña Eugenia, fabulosa usted. Mil gracias. Tengo una pregunta para usted, don José, con respecto a la horticultura del viñedo y cómo imagina usted el futuro con hibridización, con lo demás, consistente a sus comentarios con cambio climático. And I would translate by saying that I'm just asking about techniques in the orchard that may be in the future for these grapes, considering climate change.
Perfect question, thank you.
En estos momentos lo que estamos trabajando desde el punto de vista vitícola con el cambio climático es en cómo se adaptan las variedades que en estos momentos disponemos a las diferentes zonas de La Rioja.
He's saying that what they are studying at this moment is that with the varieties we have nowadays, so Tempranillo, Mazuelo, Graciano, how they are adapting to the different areas. So they are basically pretty much now studying climate change, how they affect to the varieties we use.
Do you anticipate that these will be changes that are visible in the next 10 years?
¿Crees que estos cambios se producirán como en 10 años, por ejemplo? ¿Anticipáis que esto pueda ocurrir?
No. Es un periodo muy corto. Es un periodo muy corto. Es un periodo muy corto es demasiado rápido para cambiar el viñedo en 10 años.
En 10 años.
Va a ser 30, 40 años, igual sí que hay que tomar unas medidas muy drásticas.
Maybe not in 10 years, but maybe in 30, 40 years.
Fabuloso. Por lo tanto, salud, mil gracias, fabuloso.
Thank you.
With a spectacular accent too, excellent. So we have to talk about the
Madeline, oh,
yes, please, go ahead.
Madeline, just gonna say, I'm drinking the 2010 and it is absolutely fabulous. It's full body, very smooth, just delicious. And I'm having some Spanish cheese that they recommended at Plum Market. But one of the things, the bottle is just sexy. I did not want to break the seal, the wrapping around it.
You
And
don't have
so-
to break it. There is a
I
particular
didn't,
way
I
to
didn't, I
open it.
figured out how to do it.
You
but I
have to,
just-
with this, you need to take the net, you need to like try to open it and put it down.
And push it
And then-
down and then
You do
pull
it, and then you, so the presentation is,
Yes, it's beautiful.
Can you tell Jose what Elaine said, that she thinks the presentation is very sexy?
sé que la presentación es que es una expresión súper en inglés, que es como muy sexy, muy atractiva, muy bonita, la presentación del vino.
Okay, on that note, we have to talk about the 96, because tell him my impression, and it's really surprising me. I found that when I first opened the 96, it smelled a little bit almost too vinous, almost oxidative, like it was getting tired, but after air, it actually started showing more fruit, more forward, and more expressive.
Comenta
Sí.
Madeline que ella cuando abrió el vino al principio, pues, es un vino que al parecer es como más oxidativo, los aromas, pero que a medida que el vino se va abriendo empieza a salir la fruta, las notas características de este vino debido también al tiempo que tiene.
It needed air.
Efectivamente, yo acabo de abrir el vino en
Necesita
este
aire.
momento. El vino está un poquito reducido, si lo hubiera abierto antes estaría más expresivo, pero en la medida que el vino se nos va a airear, es un vino que va a expresar muy bien ese contenido de 25 años que lleva guardando ahí. La fruta que va saliendo, esos matices todavía de dulces de la barrica, esa parte especiada, esas notas de oxidación también que van saliendo muy agradables. La parte de envejecimiento de la botella, todo eso muy sutilmente va apareciendo ahí.
So, quick, I need to so he's just trying to think about everything he said. So what he's saying is that the wine at first is very close, obviously,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
the wine has been closed for 25 years. So it is the same than when you are traveling for 12 hours in the same airplane.
Right.
When you get out, you need to move, yep, exactly the same with the wine. Once you open it, the wine is in contact with the oxygen, and all that fruit from that vintage starts coming up, and it still tells you the sweet from the barrel, so
Yes.
some notes from the aging that are still in the wine, even though it's 25 years old.
Well, please tell him this wine taught me a lesson, because I'm always counseling people to be very careful about the amount of air that they give mature wines, but this wine needed it. Would you tell him that?
A ella le ha dado una lección este vino porque hay vinos que quizás nada más abrir ya te cuentan muchas cosas, pero este vino ha necesitado mucho aire, mucha oxigenación, digamos, para poder abrirse y contarnos un poco más de sus características, ¿no?
Sí, efectivamente. Es un vino, yo creo que es un vino para estar dándole muchas vueltas en la copa. Lo que sí que expresa este vino, sobre todo, es esa parte que habitualmente no encontramos, la parte más de crianza de la botella, esa parte de especiados, de hierba seca. Sensaciones cálidas pero secas, no es tan dulce, no es tan...
Dry
como las
notes.
anteriores.
It's not as sweet as you might, like, not sweet, sorry, I mean,
Right.
you don't get to find those sweet notes that you might find in a fresh new 2010 Faustino Gran Reserva. You find more the dry note, obviously due to the aging, as he says, and of course the wine needs quite a lot of aging. Some vintages need more than the other ones. Maybe if you taste now 1995, it opens quicker than maybe a 1996.
No, but I have to tell you, really, after air, this wine is shocking me because it actually, mid-palate, everyone, if you hold it on your palate, there's a deep sweetness to it. You know, the fruit is still intact and the tannin structure has changed. It's smoother. By the way, and this is to Elaine's questions about what to eat with what and wine. there are specific recommendations about wine, food for this wine, the 96 chorizo, fried eggs, scrambled eggs and truffles, and egg and wine is tricky. Or you can just do a little simple rice, mushrooms, and rabbit dish. Good luck in finding the rabbit, but I really
Very
think
common in
this
Spain to eat
is a
rabbit.
very
Actually.
common. How do you say rabbit in Spanish?
Conejo.
How do you say it?
Conejo.
Conejo. Okay.
Conejo is the animal, and it's, I mean, game food in Spain is quite strong in the north because it's colder. But conejo, or rabbit, is really typical dish in here. Truffle, it can go perfectly with the wine as well due to the aging, right?
Beautifully smooth, great tannin structure.
Paella,
Now,
yes.
we have to talk a little, somebody asked about paella. Yeah.
Paella de
Paella
conejo.
with rabbit. My mom cooks paella with rabbit. ¿A que sí, José Mari? La paella con conejo de toda la
Paella
vida.
con conejo.
Incredible.
That means terrific, right?
Yes, you understood the signs that he's. Yeah.
Can you put, Carrie, can you put the name for a rabbit in Spanish in the chat
I do
room?
it. It's
That's
gonna
great
take
if you
me.
can do it. And then maybe, I mean, I'm amazed staring at this. This is, we're talking about, over 50,000 barrels and, millions of bottles. So this looks like a very modern facility, yes?
It's a new addition in the company. It's only 10 years old, the barrel store area, because we were keeping the barrels underground in so many different labyrinth rooms, blah, blah, blah. So they decided to use this new room for Crianza and Faustino Art, Tempranillo, and Reserva. But the Gran Reserva is still kept at the cemetery of the company, of the winery. But this room is just amazing because it's like an ocean of barrels.
Now, this is where bottles are stored. And tell us what this is called in Spanish and why, because this is very touching, everybody. Listen up to this. It's special.
It's quite romantic. I mean, I've been in the wine industry for 12 years, and that's one of the first things I learned when I was doing visits at the winery, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is the cemetery." And one day I was like, "Why do you say cemetery?" Because it's where
So they call it the cemetery, correct?
I mean, it's common to call cemetery only in old wineries, okay? Not in the new ones. Old wineries like Faustino, we call the cemetery because it's not where the people, I mean, as you can imagine, cemetery associated with dead bodies, but not in Europe, particularly in Spain, the religion is quite strong, and cemetery means where you sleep eternally. So pretty much the wine is sleeping, it's not this. This is
Isn't
why
that beautiful? So this is where the wine sleeps forever. It's not dead, it's just.
no, it keeps developing and changing and getting older, but the wine is still there. It haven't been disappear. You can open and drink it. And that's how you call it, the cemetery. These old wineries, every single person I know calls this cemetery.
So I have one more sort of technical question for Jose. This is as a sommelier. What I find very interesting about Rioja is it doesn't drop too much sediment, and the sediment is very like ash, like cigarette ash. It's not dark sediment like Bordeaux. Is that because Tempranillo doesn't drop a dark sediment, or is it because of the extended barrel aging, or both? Because I think that's great for people to know. You can decant it, but you don't have to worry about the dark bitter sediment. Can you ask him about that?
Lo que nos pregunta Madeleine es que a ella lo que le impresiona es que los sedimentos que encontramos en este vino son sedimentos como de ceniza, no el sedimento oscuro y yo creo que un poquito más denso que encuentras en los vinos antiguos de Burdeos. Y ella pregunta que si eso viene debido a la variedad Tempranillo o a la crianza en barrica del vino.
Más tipo de ceniza. Yo creo que quizás pueda haber un poco de mezcla de lo que puede ser evolución del color, o sea, caída de materia colorante, con algo de ácido tartárico, ¿sí?
A ver cómo lo explico.
Go ahead, but tell us what he just said. Go ahead.
He's saying that it could be a mix of both of these things. The tartaric acid.
Tartaric acid, right?
And ¿Qué dijiste al principio? ¿El ácido tartárico y?
Materia colorante, o sea, color. Que, haya, o sea,
And the color.
que el
The
precipitado
color
sea de dos
content.
cosas, que no sea solamente ni color ni tartárico, sino que sean
It's
las
not
dos
only-
cosas a la vez.
Not only the tartaric acid or the color that is falling what creates those ashes, he thinks that that is created between the two things that creates that. ¿Eso es por el tempranillo o por la crianza del
No,
vino?
esto es porque antes no se trataban tanto los vinos.
This
No se
is-
ponían el frío, no se ponían tanto al frío, sino que eran vinos que se trabajaban más en rama, más
those wines,
naturales.
those ashes you were mentioning, it's because before in the past, wines like those ones, they weren't treated with cold as they are now to establish the wine. They were very natural process. But this is why they generate those ashes more naturally. Maybe if we look at those new vintages in years time, they don't have those ashes that strongly, for example. This is
But the sediment is not dark, and is that
It's not dark.
typical? I don't have to worry about, leaving the sediment in the decanter, correct? Ask him that.
Sí, dice que eso, que los sedimentos no son muy oscuros y que no tiene necesidad en verdad de usar un decantador como tal, porque yo creo que hay sedimentos que tú puedes ver en un vino bordelés antiguo como muy densos, que casi tienes que colar, ¿no? Que estos son como más sutiles.
Sí, es posible.
Es típico en Rioja eso.
Hombre, aquí tener en cuenta que, a ver, la cantidad de color que tienen estos vinos no es tan exagerada como, por ejemplo, en la Ribera del Duero, que la estructura ahí es mucho más alta y aquí los vinos son un poquito más finos, con lo cual tampoco es de esperar que estos vinos precipiten en gran medida.
Yeah, it's basically also
La
because of
materia,
the
perdona, Maru, la materia de color general, por el tipo de vinos que se hacen en Rioja, se estabiliza bastante mejor que en otras zonas.
Yeah, he's saying that Rioja, for example, is a good area. This is one of the answer to your question, Madeline, that the ashes that you see, it's due to the region. Because of the color of grapes, they don't create those dark sediment you mentioned, for example, from
Yes.
Bordeaux. For example, if you go to Ribera del Duero,
You get much more
right,
sediment, yes,
the sediments
Yes,
of
much
there will be
darker.
darker.
right.
And this
So
is because
everyone-
of the elegance of the variety in Rioja, the land, the weather.
So what I'm telling our guests is that the beauty about Rioja is Reserva Gran Reserva, you can decant it, leave a little bit in the bottom after sanding it out, but the quality of the sediment is not bitter and it won't interfere with the flavor of the wine, in my opinion. Now, we're gonna stay on if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions, but I have to tell you what our next tasting is, and I don't have a picture for you, but you can mark it. It's 2 weeks from today. And it's with a wonderful French producer, Laurence Ferraud, who is the owner and winemaker of Chateau Pegal in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So that'll be a nice follow-up from being in Spain. And that said, I just put this slide up because I never realized this was a Rembrandt painting, right, Maru?
Exactly. People think he's part of the family and not
Right.
at all. He is not even the founder or anyone related with the family. He is a Rembrandt painting. And let me tell you why very quickly. When the winery was founded in the 60s, Don Julio realized that wine and art were quite alike in terms of like you need your senses to appreciate it. In this case, you need your taste, you need your eyes. This is why back in the 60s, he was really, really revolutionary, because you need to go back on those days, but using art in the front labels of wine was something different. And it helped him to tell the consumers how important the wine was, the same than art. And this is why he used this Rembrandt portrait. And now this man, Nicolai van Bambeek, a wine merchant, is even more popular thanks to Faustino than thanks to Rembrandt.
It's a gorgeous painting. And now I realize why it mesmerizes me, because it's made by a cosmic class artist. Everyone, I want to make one comment, and then please, you can chime in with anything you'd like to talk about. But I feel that if you buy any of the 1996, and I meant what I said, this wine educated me, I strongly suggest you just, you go ahead.
So, sorry, Madeline, let me interrupt you for something
Yes.
very funny. But at the winery, sometimes, but only sometimes, Nicolai van Bambeek comes to the winery to do the tours.
Oh my God. So he shows up, yes.
Yeah, sometimes he does with the
He
ghost.
shows up to
as a
give a
ghost.
tour. Nicola, right?
Tours of
The
the
wine
winery.
merchant who has been immortalized by Rembrandt. So all I was saying is that this wine taught me that it really needs, the 96 Gran Reserva, it needs a little bit of air. You know, I've been always almost too cautious about giving older wines too much air so they don't fall apart. But this wine really needed it to open up, give us that sweetness and show its complexity. So it really transformed in the glass for me. So, you know, Jose, I have to tell you, it's wonderful to talk to you, and I can't wait to have your company for 2 hours, maybe with some food, paella or rabbit, right? So I can ask you too many questions, or we can walk the vineyards in Rioja. Will you tell him that, Maru?
You please repeat in a short version to repeat the question
No, I
again.
look forward to seeing him in Rioja, where I
In
can
Rioja,
ask him
yeah.
too many questions. Mhm.
I know, he will be so pleased to. A José Mari, que le encantaría pues hacer esto mismo, pero visitándote en La Rioja y hablar del vino, de la viticultura y de todo lo que nos rodea a ti y a mí.
Yo estaría encantado. Estoy encantado de que venga Madeleine por aquí y de acompañarle a donde haga falta.
He's awesome. He will be so pleased to have you over there and talk
And
about.
all our friends who are on here tonight. So does anyone want to unmute, speak up, make some comments, ask any
Hey,
questions?
Madeline, I have a comment. I opened up the 1996 yesterday, and I know, and the cork broke. I mean, when the cork was collapsing and all this kind of stuff, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. So I sealed it a little bit, and then Marguerite got here and they saved the whole thing.
Mhm.
And it turned out that was the best thing that I could have ever done, because it basically had air for almost 24 hours, and it is delicious. And yesterday I was a little apprehensive about it, but it's amazing. I mean, it's our favorite of the three, I think, for sure. So you are
Oh, that's
spot on.
fantastic.
And I was like you, I was afraid that, oh my gosh, it's gonna have too much air, and I've ruined it. And no, it was perfect. So I would recommend if anybody gets it, agree.
Amy está diciendo que ayer se asustó, abrió el vino para oxigenarlo un poco, el corcho se le cae, bueno, me parece que se le deshizo, entendí, algo así entendido. Básicamente se preocupó.
Sí, se descompuso el corcho.
Se descompuso el corcho,
Sí.
eso es. Y ella estaba preocupada de cómo iba a estar el vino, y en cambio estas 24 horas, el cambio que ha pegado y a pesar del tiempo que tiene, se ha quedado impresionada. De hecho es el vino que más está disfrutando, básicamente.
Riquísimo y salud.
Para ser un vino.
Sí, a veces nos podemos encontrar. El corcho es una materia viva, es una materia viva que tiende a evolucionar.
Precisamente.
Que aguanta bastante bien el tiempo, pero a veces nos encontramos con que hay tapones pues que vienen igual de una partida que igual pues le cuesta un poquito alargar la vida, ¿no?
Pero no
es lo
importa,
normal,
es todo
no es
paciencia.
lo normal.
Okay, we need a little bit of English here. Somebody
De todos
translate.
modos, es una buena
Thank you so
herramienta.
much.
Jose Mari is showing the cork, the bottle opener he used, and he's saying that the cork, you need to remember, is alive. This is not dead. It doesn't matter how many years the wine has been bottled, this is still alive. And this is why sometimes you don't know the condition of the cork until you open the bottle. It's also one of the reasons that makes the wine change during the years. This is why it is so important.
No, and Jose showed us he's in our soul. And
Enseña
so
tu-
yes, if you feel like spending, that's a Durand.
It's a Durand, yeah, I was just
Bravo.
gonna say.
That's the Durand, because those are.
No hay problema con esto, no hay problema.
Durand.
And
So I have
Durands
to
are,
break this news to everyone. You might be able to find it on sale, but the full retail price of a Durand, which combines, the screw with the asso, is around $200, but it's Christmas time. So I'm sure you can find some online for significantly less than that. And it is a fantastic tool for opening older bottles.
Very-
Thank you for showing us, Jose.
Terry,
Yeah.
were you saying something?
I was gonna say the Durand, and there is a little secret. I've been able to purchase them online for about $125 if you just
Ooh,
Google.
where?
But But I was actually, I think, just Googling Duran and then just going on Google Shopping. But a little bird told me the patent is actually running up. So within about the next year or two, they're going to be much more accessibly priced.
Yay!
So yeah, just a heads up. And
So,
then the
Están hablando
1990.
de la marca, ya te contaré,
Go
de la
ahead,
marca de
Carrie.
sacacorchos que tienes.
Yeah, and so the 96, we did decide to show that to you. I know some of you are experiencing some cork issues, but what's even better about this is you're noticing the wine is stunning. However, with this kind of cork issue, we've been able to provide a little bit more accessible price. So one of my favorite things about this is most people cannot afford a 1996 Grand Reserva at the price Plum is provided. So it's a treat. I think it's a great Christmas present too, coming maybe with the caveat of just a little jiggling or using an Osso or Durand. But Jose, this is one of my favorite wines. And
Oh, it's showing
Uno de los
like
vinos
$1 million.
favoritos de Carrie, José, el 96, que lo llevan Pacific Highway en los Estados Unidos.
So I have to tell you a story, very short one. You have to tell Jose this. The Durand was named after a sommelier who passed away a couple of years ago, Yves Durand. So he didn't make it, but the person who made it named it after him. And I was in a competition with Yves Durand before I passed the MS exam. And we had a taste off between Cognac and Armagnac at the end. And he won, I didn't. It was a sommelier competition. So tell him that.
Lo que está contando Madeleine es que, bueno, el sacacorchos que tienes fue nombrado después gracias a un sommelier que falleció hace 2 años y que ella cuando se sacó sus exámenes de sommelier compitió contra él, creo que cataron un cognac y un you tasted cognac and Armagnac.
I was ahead by half of a point, but the French said that I had to win by a full point. So they gave us a competition between blind tasting Cognac and Armagnac, and he got it and I didn't.
Sí, que compitió contra él, fíjate, y que por medio punto en verdad no ganó, pero que fue nombrado por un sommelier, que no fue quien lo inventó, y falleció hace 2 años, pero fíjate, ella lo conoció. Very impressive.
Muy bueno.
No, but the Durand was named after Yves Durand, so I
Pero
forgive
sé
him
que
for
se
winning
le
the
llama Durand
competition.
porque
Yeah.
él se llamaba Yves Durand y murió pues eso hace 2 años, o sea, fíjate.
Curioso.
Interesting story, curious.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Madeleine, I have a way of removing corks with a single prong, and it's called a Madeleine.
Seriously?
No, I just made that up at the moment.
Oh, well, it sounded good. I thought you were going to say a saber, Norman. Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on the wine or any ideas of what kind of
Madeline,
food
what's the
to
name of
cook
the-
for Thanksgiving? Go ahead.
What's the name of this? Because we use this one, which is
That's
kind
called
of,
an asso.
Eso también
That's a
está bien.
Madeleine.
Yeah.
That's a
an
That
osso.
one
Madeleine.
is also
That's right. Yeah. The
Está perfecto también.
Durand combines the osso with a screw and it costs like 10 times more. But
That's right.
basically, right,
300
it is,
euros. Yeah.
yeah, you're
Pero
combining
eso
the
es- lo
two.
importante es que hay que girar también, ¿eh? Lo
Difference
importante no hay
is
que sacar así, hay que girar.
you need to do this, not like this, so you need
You pull it like
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
exactly. You pull it
Es muy
like that.
importante.
It's
You
crucial.
actually twist it, twist.
Exactly.
Eso es.
Yeah.
Anybody
Anyone?
else? Anyone got food on the mind? What are they gonna make for Thanksgiving and drink with Rioja? All I can think of is sage dressing, and mushroom sauce.
Yeah.
With my little vegetarian meal.
Delicious.
Well, I just want to say I'm incredibly honored. I've sold this wine for years. I've drank this wine for years. I've never had the chance to even meet Jose Maria, which is a huge honor. So although I've worked with Faustino, like everyone here, I'm incredibly honored that you dedicated the time to talk to us about your wine.
Que
Thank you,
Mari,
José.
que está muy Carrie, que es nuestra, ya sabes, que trabaja para nosotros, con nosotros, con la marca en Estados Unidos, está muy, ¿cómo se diría? Honor, o sea, que les alegra mucho de haberte conocido, de que hayas podido impartir esta masterclass sobre nuestros vinos y de haber conocido incluso un poquito más, sobre todo uno de sus vinos favoritos, ¿no? El 96.
Que yo estoy encantado también, ¿eh?
He's so happy to do it. So,
Also, Maru, thank you. I know it's a different time zone, so we really appreciate you dedicating this and telling us about the wines.
It was wonderful,
on
and
a
it is
Friday night.
now 11:30 p.m. in Spain. So we are going to give our Spanish guests a virtual hug, wish them happy Thanksgiving, whether they choose to celebrate the American holiday or not. You know they'll be eating something delicious late on Thursday. And I want to thank you all for your company. We had an intimate group tonight, but sometimes that's best. You know, thank you, Jose, more than I can say, and Maru and Carrie for
Thank you.
shepherding this. And we will have recorded it, so half of the people who didn't make it tonight, but who registered, will get it with a link soon. And all the best. We look forward to seeing you in Rioja.
Yay.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas
Madeline, thank you for the
gracias.
stage. So
And
much.
thank you
Gracias a
very
todos.
much.
Good night, everyone. Have a
Hey,
good evening
gracias.
and a fine weekend.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Jose.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Thanksgiving to you all.
Bye.